Welcome back. I guess welcome back to the Unknown Fitness podcast. It was a very long hiatus from the last time we did one of these, but as you can see, we've upgraded a little bit since last time. Before we were just on Google Meets for, I think we did about 11 episodes. I looked it up earlier.
Yeah, I think it was 11.
About 11, which actually surprised me because it felt like we only did like 5 or 6.
Agreed.
I'm surprised we did as many as we did, to be fair. But we always kind of said that, we were always kind of, we always had the plan to upgrade things a little bit. But I guess life got in the way for a while, which is fine. But here we are now anyway. We've upgraded ourselves a little bit. We had a few technical issues this morning, as expected. It's always, it's a mic issue. We've got the one mic on the go for today, but we usually will have, in future, we'll have 2. So we'll have one each. So hopefully it sounds all right for everybody. But yeah, I think, these are going to be nice short form episodes. Nothing too crazy. But yeah, it'll be back to normal as like we were before, just general fitness chat. All that kind of good stuff. I'm sure we'll go veer off from that every now and again.
I think so.
But I guess small part of, small introductions. Obviously, I'm Callum, personal trainer, avid climber, and just general passion for fitness and training.
So I'm Dave, ex-professional MMA fighter, and now just, all-round endurance athlete. I think I'm starting to fall into the modern phrase of a hybrid athlete.
Yeah, I think I would call you a hybrid athlete, to be
which
fair.
is where I think a lot of running, a lot of strength training, and pretty much any challenge that comes up in between.
I think, to be fair, that's a good point to start on, to be fair, because it's been because we used to talk about our own training quite a lot. So I think it's a good place to start, to be fair. So what is your own training looking like right now?
Right now, so I've got a race in June. I think we might have mentioned this a few months ago when we spoke last. I say a few months, probably 6 months.
I think the last episode was uploaded 6-7 months ago.
There we go.
Yeah,
and I think I mentioned then about racing a horse. Well, that's been confirmed.
You are actually doing that?
I am actually doing that on the 8th of June in Wales.
That's so
me
funny.
And a bunch of other runners are going to be racing 60 horses.
60? We were debating that
horses.
At the time because the last episode we did was man versus horse. And we were debating that. We were saying at the time, like, if it was just like 2 horses versus 100 people, it's kind of fair.
Yeah.
But 60 horses?
60 horses. So the first thing I want to do is beat at least one of them.
One horse, all right.
I want to be an old man and I can sit there when I'm 90 and go, remember when I beat a horse in a race?
Yeah, I hate a horse in a race.
They don't need to know anything else about it apart from that. Essentially, though, what the race is it's a 22-mile, so almost a marathon, across Wales trail race.
Okay.
And it's basically point to point. So there's a bunch of runners, like say against 60 horses. I don't know the number of runners. It's only low hundreds. It's not a huge amount of runners.
All right.
And basically, the idea is, man v horse. Who can cover that distance first? There's cash prize at the end, which is always a good incentive. It's a rollover prize. So the way it works
because no one wins
because no one keeps winning it. I don't know how many years it's been since the last person won it.
Okay.
But just to give some context, this started in the 80s. 82, 83, something like that.
Yeah.
The last man to win took 23 grand in rollover cash.
Jesus, okay.
So,
damn, it's like the lottery. Yeah, okay.
So I don't know what the cash prize is this year. I don't think it's been that long, but it's possibly going to be in the thousands.
Because I was thinking about this earlier, actually. I was thinking, what if you're going through trails and stuff, and you say you encounter like a kissing gate or something?
Yeah.
The horse is fucked.
Yeah.
There's no way they can get over it all right. I'm surely they'd have to. I mean, I'm sure obviously the trail is picked out to be certain things, right? But like, would they have to take the long way in some cases?
Yeah, I believe there's a few places where exactly that happens, where there's a bypass for the man or bypass for the horse.
Yeah,
that sort of makes sense. And I think there's deviations in both persons' favour. Okay, because there's obvious sort of things going on there. I think as well that partway through it, I think there's like 2 vet stops. Because it's 22 miles on the horse and they've got to check the horses.
I was going to say, like, when do horses gas out?
Yeah, well, see, my understanding is that a horse is fast over a short period.
Yeah, right. Hence cavalry and stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And they're not endurance animals. Don't get me wrong, a horse is going to go for 22 miles, but they cannot go flat out for 22 miles.
Yeah, right.
Whereas obviously a good runner, like they're not going flat out, obviously they're not sprinting, but they can keep a sustained pace over 22 miles. The other thing as well, because it's a trail, is the terrain.
Yeah.
So a hill, for example, I can run straight up a hill in the the kind of shortest line possible.
Yeah.
A horse obviously can't do that. It's got a zigzag and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's going to be places where it's advantage to man, advantage to horse. Training wise for this,
normal, I guess.
It's all normal. Yeah, I'm just treating it like
horse.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot train with a horse. Yeah, I don't know. I've got a 3-bedroom house, and I don't know if there's enough room in there to store a horse.
Yeah, for a stable. Yeah.
So it's essentially treated like any other marathon. I'm treating it like a marathon because although it's a little bit under a marathon, it's on the trails. So
it's a long run, I think, for anybody. But it's finding that right middle distance, because if it's a half, I mean, that is literally impossible.
Yep.
But then what if you did an ultra and did it like 50 miles? And I think a man's going to win every time.
100%.
So it's like that weird middle ground. But like 22 miles is such a bizarre distance.
It's a bizarre distance.
There's no term for a 22-mile race, right?
No, it doesn't exist. So I'm just treating it like a marathon. To me, it's just a trail marathon, and that's what I'm training for.
Yeah, okay.
Just trying to get good at that. And again, it's all the standard stuff that I would do if I'm training for a big trail race. Get strong. You need to be strong if you're running on the trails. It's something that so many runners neglect. Yeah, you're going to be running on uneven terrain. You're going to be running uphill, downhill. So you need good, strong
ankle roll territory, right? Yeah,
absolutely my favourite area. Yeah. There's so much going on. So you do need a good, strong body. And the other thing, is just treating it like a normal marathon bit. So I'm just doing a big marathon block. I think I worked it out that I gave myself an 18-week marathon block, which is actually a little bit longer than I would normally do for a marathon. But because of the kind of race it is, and I know there's quite a few unknowns, and it's in Wales. I've run trail runs in Wales before, and they are absolutely brutal. So if kind of put that into context, I ran a half marathon trail race a year and a bit ago, less than 2 years ago, over on the Cotswolds, and I put in like a 120 something. I was one of the top finishers. I did a trail half marathon in Wales up on the Brecons. I was in third place finisher in just over 3 hours. So the terrain is just something else. Okay. So it changes everything. So you've just got to treat it like a really hard trail race.
Yeah. Okay.
It's as simple as that.
I think, and the history of this race as well, it was two guys in a pub, right, basically having a conversation, or having a debate. And I think we said last time that, that's probably how most things, British tradition start, is two guys in a pub. Or debating. A tavern, if we're going back far enough, or an inn, having a conversation or a debate about something.
What I love about this is that everybody has had these random drunk debates and arguments and whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then the next day you wake up and you carry on, that was a great night, and you go about your life. I love the fact that the next day somebody's woken up and gone, right, we need to find a horse.
Yeah, no, we're actually going to do this.
This needs to happen.
I wonder what they did as their first distance or whatever. I mean, it was just, obviously, it wasn't, I imagine it wasn't the most formally organised event.
I believe originally it was pub to pub, which is even better. I'm sure that's how this started. It was like, who could get from this pub to the next pub in the middle of nowhere quicker? Me on a horse?
There must have been some level of debate involved for actually to be worthy of doing, because it was just down road or something. I mean, the horse is going to run. The thing is, though, if you have to go on, I know it's a trail run, but if say you do have to go on the road at any point, horses aren't allowed to gallop on the roads, are they?
No. I think they still need to adhere to.
They have to go
highway
stupidly slowly, right?
Yeah.
Which is really annoying.
Yeah.
Especially if you're driving.
I think as well, there's other factors involved. So because it's like June, just heat management and things like that. So obviously, horses and things like that, it's going to be very different. June's potentially going to be absolutely baking. So
we'll see about that.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot. I mean,
we'll see
it could be a foot of snow.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those things where I think there's just so many unknown factors. It's one of those things that if this was just a 22-mile trail race in Wales, you rock up on the day, every human has got the same disadvantage or advantage as each other. The amount of times I've gone to race, people are like, I had to get up early, I'm tired, or didn't get my nutrition right, it's raining, I've been training, whatever it might be. It's like we're all at that same disadvantage. It's early in the morning for us all. We all weren't expecting this weather, whatever it might be. But then you've just got that added variable of a horse. How does all of this affect them? Yeah. So it's just massive. But I just don't know. I love the madness.
It's the idea of saying even just competing in an event like that is really cool. Maybe we should start doing that against other animals too.
Yeah, I mean, so
man versus bear.
Later this year, I believe, and this is something I remember having conversations about this a long time ago, but I believe it's happening this year. I think an Australian entrepreneur is putting it together, and it's the Enhanced Games.
This is on my notes. Yeah, this is on my notes to talk about. Actually.
So,
yeah.
I want to see that go a level further. I want to see these super jacked humans doing a 100-meter sprint against cheetah.
Cheetah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, because I saw some people worried about the health concerns of it, but my immediate thought was like, this is a sick idea.
This is brilliant.
Let's just see what, like, if you put Usain Bolt on, like, just jacked to the gills, send him down a track, you break 9 seconds. Do you know what I mean?
It would just, it would be so cool. I, forget people's concerns or their opinions on people being on the gear, right? That's probably a whole other conversation and a whole other
entertainment wise.
But if you've got a bunch of consenting people, there's no question about whether they're on anything.
Yeah.
And they are absolutely going for it.
And more than likely, you're probably watching sports anyway, where people, especially if you're like, I mean, the Russians got kicked out of the Olympics for doping.
Yeah.
So any Russian gold medal you've probably watched, there's probably some level of doping involved anyway.
100%.
So like, I mean, you probably, most sports, you're probably, if you're watching the UFC, there's a lot of guys that are doping on that. Like, let's be honest. Like, you're probably already watching it anyway.
Yeah,
so it's let's just strip back the bullshit.
Let's just take that away and let's just
let people go wild.
What people can do.
Screw the secrecy and all the doping agencies. Let's just balls to the wall.
I read there's a guy, and I can't remember his name, and he's going for like the swimming fastest ever, like I think it's like 200-meter swim or something like that.
Okay.
And he's just like, oh yeah, it's like, I'm being paid a lot of money to go on a lot of gear and break that record. And it's like, brilliant.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Fine.
Like that guy.
As long as you're getting your blood work done and it's all safe and like, you're doing it properly, then fine.
And he's going to be setting himself up for life financially.
Yeah.
From like this one event, because I know like the idea is that he's meant to smash like the fastest ever, like sort of 200-meter pace. So
that's the thing. Can you imagine someone doing long jump and like clearing the sand pit?
Yeah.
Or like someone throwing a javelin all the way into like the track while someone's doing the 400.
Get me surprisingly for the amount, the amount of like my interest in like fitness, exercise, sports and stuff like. I don't watch a huge amount of sport. This is the kind of thing that will actually get me back into
hell
it.
Yeah.
It takes away, first of all, that debate. Like anyone who watches like CrossFit Games and stuff, every year it's the same arguments. Oh, they're all on the juice. They're all doing it. Forget that. Like they're just amazing athletes.
It's entertainment though, isn't it?
But yeah, let's just forget about all of that conversation. And like you say, let's just enjoy the entertainment.
Sporting is entertainment. It always has been entertainment.
I want to see like
how far we can go as well.
100-kilo, absolute jacked human being run an 8-second 100-meter.
Yeah,
I mean,
that would be
uh-huh.
brilliant. Yeah, like there's so many
else.
like, there's so many. I mean, the combat sports is more interesting when people are all juiced up anyway. Yeah. Let's be honest. I mean, I used to be a bit more of a purist. I think the problem is, it's difficult when you have people that aren't doping and people that are doping.
Yeah.
That's when it gets complicated because you're like, that is unfair.
Yep.
But like, so it's either everyone kind of has to be on it or no one's on it. That's where the problem lies for me.
And you will never ever eliminate that problem.
No, it's impossible.
Because there are going to be people that are exactly like you say, they're just complete purists. This is the rules and I'm going to stick within them, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then there's always going to be people that are going to test that. And of course, we know there's protocols in place where people can get around testing and so on.
It's not even that hard. If you've got money, it's not that difficult.
No, exactly. And that's where there is an issue. However, if you just take away that, professional bodybuilders, let's do that. Where
that's the one sport where it's like no one cares.
They're just like we're on the gear. Who cares? Professional BJJ, Gordon Ryan's a great example of somebody that's like, it's not illegal in our sport. We don't get tested. And if you've seen Gordon Ryan on cycle and off cycle, it's two very different people.
Yeah. When he had to go up to heavyweight,
or
whatever, the highest weight class in jiu-jitsu to fight that one Brazilian dude, whatever his name was, he was massive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way he could have possibly fought him unless he was on the juice.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like how long it would have taken to actually put on that amount of mass and size it would have taken fucking years to do that. It may not even be able to achieve that naturally. Exactly. So it's just like, well, what do you want for the actual sport itself? Do you want to see that matchup in 10 years or in 6 months? Like, do you know what I mean?
Do you want to see it now when you've got Gordon Ryan, who
at the top of his game, best in the world,
peak,
so
best there's ever been, in my opinion. It's just something else. Let's see that fight now. And like by his own admittance, like I do like the fact that he'll put his hand up and say that he's on the gear. And I also like the fact that he'll say, I'm not breaking the rules.
Yeah,
if there was a rule that it said I couldn't do it, that's fine. I'll just go to a different federation and I'll compete for them.
That's the thing. That's the question from a promoter's standpoint as well. Like they're in the business of entertainment and money.
Do you want Gordon Ryan headlining your event and making you millions?
Actually, one combat sport is, I don't know how much gear plays a part. How much does gear play a part in boxing? You never hear about it in boxing.
Yeah,
you never hear about doping questions in boxing.
And of course it goes on. And I think where it's going to help is more from the recovery side.
Yeah, and EPO style things.
Yeah, we know that obviously people being on the gear, it helps you recover better. It helps you recover from injury. It helps you just recover from your day-to-day training. So it's going to allow people to train at a higher standard, etc., etc. And like you say, you've got EPO, which is going to help people's endurance and all of these kind of things. Of course, it goes on. But like you say, nobody talks about it.
I think nobody talks about it in boxing, which is really weird.
There's also... I don't know. Boxing's just been around forever, and we know it's a dangerous sport. It's a combat sport, but it's a very traditional sport.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got things like MMA, the UFC, whatever it might be. People are still liking it. I know, and this argument is just so in the past for me. But people are still, it's human cockfight. It's still You've still got these arguments and these people like rallying against these sports, so they're going to do anything to kind of slur it. The other thing is you also get guys that walk in that clearly look like they've just come off of the street and they look like they've got nothing. And then you've got like, I don't know, Paulo Costa walks into the ring. And it's there's this clear physical difference. Not that I'm saying he's on the juice, but...
He's on secret juice.
Yeah, he's on something.
Yeah.
But it's just red wine, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you've got these clear physical differences. And I don't think you see that so much in boxing. Now, of course, you do, but generally... people don't look so much like these superheroes.
That's the thing, because if you've got someone like Lomachenko, who's 135-pound weight class, it's like, I guarantee Lomachenko, he's one of those people I guarantee he's probably never done anything in his life. And a lot of boxers, I think, do just have phenomenal cardio because it's just part of their sport. But like, you can always look at a guy and tell whether they're sourced or not.
100%.
You can just kind of, when you've seen it enough, you're like, yeah. I've never looked at like anyone in like lower boxing weight classes and thought, So do you know what I mean?
I've spent
even heavyweights
a lot of time, especially when I was fighting in various gyms around the UK and beyond, fight gyms. And exactly like you say, there's a lot of people that are clearly on the juice.
Yeah, right.
And in that little bubble of the gym, they're very open about it. It's going on in plain sight. Obviously, outside of those closed doors, it's not. But it's exactly that. You can usually tell which one's on the juice and which one isn't, just from a physical point of view. Yeah. How can you be training at the same standard as me, even less in a lot of occasions, and look like that? It just doesn't work.
It's interesting though, from a purely training and non-competitive standpoint. It's like, well, if you use it for training and it helps with purely from like a skill acquisition and helps your skill acquisition, but then when you compete, you don't. It's kind of like, well, is there really anything wrong with that?
Yeah.
Purely from just like wanting to expedite the skill acquisition process and just try and like speed up your way of learning. I don't know. It's
a really
it's a weird one.
I think.
But then again, it's hard to then use it in training and feel like amazing, and then you get in the cage and you're sloppy and like
your worst. Yeah. I think as well, and again, I'm probably talking on behalf of other people here, but maybe there's a mental aspect to it as well. It's like I can only train at this level if I'm on the juice. I can only look like I can only feel confident.
I think we saw that in the UFC though, when the USADA came in and you saw people like Overeem and just like all that, you know.
Right. Back in the day, I was the biggest fan ever of Pride. Yeah. Okay, and for anyone that is relatively new to MMA, go back and watch some of the old Pride stuff. Yeah, because you probably only know Vanderlei Silva, Rampage Jackson, Crow Cop. You only know these guys from the UFC, and they weren't at their best.
No, there was after.
Yeah. Go back to Pride when they were off their faces on the gear.
Yeah.
Like, there has never been anyone scarier than Vanderlei Silva when he was on the juice.
Yeah.
Like, it was just something else to watch. And again, it was no secret that everyone was just like gilled up. It's as simple as that. But it was amazing to watch. As soon as they went over to the UFC, and like you say, obviously testing come in, it changed everything about them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just like they didn't lose their skill set.
Yeah.
Wanderlei Silva could still do all the things he could do before. He's still a top class Muay Thai fighter. He's still a BJJ black belt, and all of that. Those things didn't go away.
Strength and power. And,
it's the aggression that probably comes with it.
Yeah,
it's going to be a lack of confidence. I'm convinced of that. Yeah, there's going to be that mental aspect of it and things like that. So, and of course he is getting a little bit older in age as well, so that's going to affect it a little bit, but not to the point where he just got to made on time. He just got looked like a mediocre fighter, whereas he was at one point one of the most dangerous men in the world. And you're not talking like, oh, that was 10 years ago. You're talking like that was 12 months ago. So it changes everything.
You look at the physique difference of all these guys, like Vitor and whatever. Like
Vitor's just something else.
Vitor's was like prime example of like, if you Google before and after Vitor on the juice, Vitor Belfort.
But who did you enjoy watching the most?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
early
like,
Vitor.
It always comes back to entertainment.
That's the thing. There's going to be a lot. Like, so when Vitor Belfort, and you might not even remember this, but when Vitor Belfort first joined the UFC and he was the Phenom and all of it, it was something else to watch. Like, it was absolutely spectacular.
So it's this guy, a Silicon Valley billionaire, Peter Thiel, is throwing his financial muscle behind, this is a New York Post article, whose organizer boasts that athletes will dope out in the open and honestly. So Thiel made his money in Facebook and PayPal. A bit of trivia for you. But yeah, I think, why the hell not? I don't see. Yeah, so you told the Post where 44% of the Olympians admit to using banned substances, while only 1% actually get caught.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you know what I mean? So like, you're basically already watching the steroid Olympics anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's just be honest about it. I would love to see like certain. I'm trying to think of all the Olympic sports that like are around at the moment.
I mean, I want to see somebody throw a javelin out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Like hit a car in the car
like shot put or anything like that, or like high jump or anything to do with that. Just juiced up.
I think they're going to be selective ones because I read there's going to be some combat sport involved.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
It's always taekwondo,
judo, that kind of thing.
Wrestling,
boxing,
freestyle wrestling, and boxing.
Wrestling. Yeah. I mean, let's be fair. Most wrestlers, Olympic level wrestlers,
true. Good point.
Yeah. They've come through high school programs.
The thing is, how much of a performance enhancement are we actually talking? That's the question. Are we talking marginal differences in actual ability level? Like, what are we actually, like, are we talking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% performance difference?
I don't know, because it's like...
It can't be more than 10% or 5%. Really, if you think...
But then imagine if you added like 5% to Usain Bolt.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like,
so it's like, it's
that
different.
Percentages.
The difference between what was his record, like 9.5 something,
yes,
but then you knock that down to 9.3 even, and that's insane.
So I mean, and that actually, from a visual point of view, is a lot. That's like that person on over 100 meters is going to be head and shoulders ahead of everyone else to come in that
far when you're talking
like,
that kind of numbers.
When you're actually looking at it on a camera and things like that. I remember like back in the 80s, like Ben Johnson getting pulled for doing like the 100 meter, and he just absolutely blew everyone out of the water. He came from nowhere and blew everyone away over 100 meters, and then obviously he popped. But again, it was a phenomenal difference. And because it's something like 100 meters where that 1 second on a camera is actually like, it's yards ahead of the person behind you. So
that's the thing, like with the javelin, are we talking like they can throw it maybe 20 meters further?
Or are they just going to do something
further?
Absolutely mental?
Yeah, like start throwing it at people.
See, that's the other thing. It's like, I want to know if there's going to be like a massive like void rage moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if like, I don't know what the actual... If there has been some clinical trials into like, or like some analysis into like roid aggression, I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be.
Well, no, because average gym would just be full of people fighting.
People who aren't on that. It can be pretty temperamental. But no, I think it would be great. I mean, obviously we've got the Olympics themselves this year anyway in Paris, which should be really cool. The only thing I'm actually going to watch, I'll probably watch most of it, but I want to watch the climbing because was first introduced in the Tokyo Olympics for the first time.
So it's very new.
Very new. Yeah. And they did it in a combined format last time, which was a bit shit. So they had speed climbing, lead climbing, which is rope, and then bouldering. And the overall winner of all of those got the gold medal. So there's only one winner in men's and women's.
Okay.
But now they've split the disciplines out, which is because they're all they're three completely different disciplines of climbing. Yes. So like now people can actually win golds in each, which is amazing.
Which would make sense because obviously a speed climber, for example, is obviously going to be good at the other disciplines, but
not nearly as much as they're good at speed climbing.
Exactly.
The speed climbing, it's the same route
It's the same every time.
It's the same route every time. It never changes.
Yeah.
And being good at that kind of skill, speed climbing and lead climbing are two completely different things. So like that's really cool. The only annoying thing for me is that the day of the finals, I'm going to Croatia.
Okay.
I'm traveling that day, so I'll be in the fucking airport or on the plane during the fucking. To be fair, I land about 11:30. So provided it's on like in the afternoon, because it's Croatia and Paris, the time difference won't make too much of an issue. So hopefully it's on in the afternoon and I won't miss it.
No offense to climbing, it's not going to be all over the media.
No.
No. Yeah, so you can avoid it.
Avoid it, hopefully, to see who the winners are. But it should be really, really cool. It's going to be interesting to see. Because to be honest, I think women's climbing is far more entertaining than men's climbing. I prefer watching women's climbing than men's climbing. I don't really know why.
Agile.
I think there's something to do with like watching the way women move compared to men is more satisfying to watch. For some weird reason, women are just men can be just as elegant, but like women are just for some reason the way. It's interesting actually because like ability level in a lot of sports is quite a big bit of differential.
Yeah.
In climbing, it's very similar. Like there's not I wouldn't say there was a huge discrepancy compared to as there is to other sports.
Again, I know very little about climbing, but I'm guessing there's a big skill element to it.
Yeah, skill is massive, and flexibility and mobility and all these kind of things.
And of course, moving a smaller, lighter body.
Yeah, that can be a massive fact. And women are generally more prone to endurance.
Yeah.
More so than men. Like they're generally more type 1 fiber type dominant when like from birth, generally speaking, they just have more endurance. So when it comes to long lead climbs and things like that, they're generally just more genetically disposed. I mean, obviously men always they're a bit more genetically exposed to strength and power. So speed climbing, for example, they're always going to be a little bit of a step ahead. And when it comes to bouldering, maybe a little bit as well. But when it comes to lead climbing, it's
and that kind of rings true in the sports that I do. I mean, certainly when I do ultra runs, there generally tends to be a bigger field of women.
Yeah, ultra running, perfect 100%. Example of that as well. Like it's when it comes to endurance.
They do, yeah. There's no
like
doubt about
talk about Courtney Daughter, for example. I mean, she is like unbelievable. I mean, on her pizza and beer diet that she lives on.
100%.
She's a perfect example of like, you know, when I think it was the first Moab that they maybe ever did, the first Moab 240. She beat the second place person by 10 hours.
Yeah.
10 hours.
I mean, that's an ultra in itself.
That is unbelievable. Like to beat the second place, like she got back, had a nap, had food. You're waiting 10 hours for someone to come back, like the next person to come in.
Work,
I mean, ridiculous. And she's still performing phenomenally well now.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolute freak of like of an athlete. I mean, so I think when it comes to running, I don't really think there's or any kind of endurance sport, that's not true. When it comes to strength and power, it's a bit different. But when it comes to endurance, there's really not much of a discrepancy there at all, which is really cool to watch. Yeah, I don't know anything you're excited for in the Olympics.
I'm interested to see marathon.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much talk again about, and we are getting closer and closer to someone genuinely beating 2 hours in an actual sanctioned
official
event.
thing. Yeah, right. Okay.
So we know Kipchoge has obviously done it in the past.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Despite what anyone says, the guy ran under 2 hours. Like, it's as simple as that. But in a sanctioned event or in a marathon major, these things aren't recorded. So there's talk of obviously like people like Kiptum and coming in under 2 hours, which I think would just be absolutely phenomenal. And to see it at the Olympic level, it's the top of the sport.
Yeah.
The thing going into the Olympics, there's obviously a lot of talk about people getting busted, going back to the gear. Like people are starting to pop now as we're getting closer to it. So I really hope that doesn't happen to any of the kind of top level guys.
Yeah.
Because
luckily that hasn't really fed into climbing yet.
No.
People don't really dope in climbing. It doesn't really happen. Not that we know of anyway.
Exactly.
It doesn't really happen.
It feels like a more sort of authentic sport.
Yeah,
in all
it's
fairness.
pure. It's a bit more pure. Yeah.
It feels a bit more like that. Whereas
it's kind of nice. Everyone is. I've never met a dick at the climbing gym.
That's fair.
Ever.
And I think with like marathon running, it's like generally everyone's nice, but there is this massive 2 hours. It was like, let's get to 2:05, then 2:03. Now let's get to 2 hours. And there's a lot of pressure on people to get that. So I can see how people are trying to get that little edge.
Yeah.
But of course, it's
that's the thing. You can be nice at the start of the race, right?
Yeah.
But then when you've got like 2 miles to go and the other person is there, you're not going to be like, hi, how's your race going? Yeah, you're not going to be quite like that.
No. So I think I'm going to be interested to see how that goes. there's always things that I just end up getting pulled into.
I'll watch anything. Yeah, to be honest.
I always get pulled into gymnastics. I think it's
gymnastics is
especially
cool.
some of the ring stuff and things like that.
That's always good. Gymnastics.
Like seeing some of the stuff that people do, I'm just envious of it. Nothing
All
else.
the track stuff's usually in the second half.
Yes, because let's be fair, most people want to watch like the athletics. That's the kind of
it's the track and field. Track and field.
So there'll be a lot of that going on. I'll watch the wrestling.
Swimming's boring.
Yeah, I'm
not a fan.
Not a fan of swimming.
It's only because I don't swim.
Yeah,
and I'm not a good swimmer.
I can swim. I feel confident that if I fell into a river, unless it was like the Thames, I'm not going to die.
No, I don't.
But I'm not the best swimmer.
No, I don't do water.
But yeah, I mean, there's some things. The thing is, though, it's exactly like I say, it will be on 24/7, and this year it's going to be like Tokyo.
Thank God it's in Paris,
everything.
So the times are
pretty good.
Bang on what we want, which is perfect.
But yeah, no, I think it's possibly a good year. I am, again, going back to our initial conversation there about like people being on the gear. It will be interesting to see again how many people do pop, and that is one of those things that always happen every year after all of these big events. People come out the back of it and start losing medals. So
it is such a unique thing, the Olympics, because that 4-year kind of gap between competing. Obviously, things have like Commonwealth Games. There's always national things. There's always shit going on. But there's nothing like the training for like 4 years for one specific event is nuts.
People drop their entire lives to focus on.
It's crazy, yeah.
It's mad as well.
Like, the shelf life of an Olympic athlete is very short, unless you're like a Michael Phelps or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Most people don't get beyond one.
No, yeah.
But then it's like, there's things like, they've just had obviously the Olympic trials, the Olympic marathon trials, which America do that very, very well. They turn that into a sort of a big spectacular for itself, and that in itself is a big event. And that happened like last weekend, and to try and get like the top 4 runners through, I think.
Okay.
But they turn that into like a massive event, and that obviously gets everybody excited over there for then the marathon.
Well, in a place where they have stuff like the NFL Combine, you know what I mean? They put an event on for anything.
Yeah, and they turn it into something. Yeah, and I think that's probably America being America.
Yeah. Is it more just a display of prowess more than anything else? You know what I mean?
But it gets people talking.
Gets people psyched. Yeah. Gets people psyched.
Most people that I know within the kind of running communities last weekend were watching the American marathon trials, and they couldn't tell you who was going through for the UK. And that's just madness. So America are doing something right there. They turn it into something. They make celebrities of these people.
We've got one British climber who's performed really well in the World Cup season last year, a chap called Toby Roberts. 18, 19 years old. He's our best candidate to win climbing gold medal. So I'm hoping he pulls it off. He's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. He won his first couple of golds. He won in lead and he won in bouldering last year. So he's good at both. So we have a really good contention with him actually, hopefully medal placing.
Nice.
It's because usually, I mean, this is the thing with, there's no, the Japanese are very good boulderers, generally speaking. But like Europeans generally, I mean, it's very spread out. French are already very good. I mean, sport climbing was basically invented in France. So there's a lot of good spread with that. But yeah, I'm hoping Toby Roberts will be able to pull up hopefully a medal in that. That's our biggest candidate in that respect. But he's the only, I couldn't name you any British people from any other Olympic sport apart from that could be actually give us a medal contention. But I
think I'm looking forward to the men's 1500 because we've got Josh Carr be up against Jakob Ingebrigtsen. So for anyone that's into like running, Ingebrigtsen has just been something else over the last 4 or 5 years. He's just taken everything from 1500 up to 5k. He's just an absolute phenom. And then of course at the games that we had,
what's Olympic 5k times?
Oh shit, man! You're talking like 12 minutes.
That's fucking stupid.
12 and a half, that kind of thing.
12 minutes.
Yeah, I think the women's just, the record just fell. And I'm going to get this completely wrong, but even like the female record is down in like 12:34 something.
I can't even. That's sprinting for 12 minutes.
I can't get my head around it at all.
I'd love to see that in person. Can you imagine them turning
insane.
up at a park run?
Park run, yeah, absolutely.
Just so 12 minutes.
Right,
That'd be so
going
fun.
off a bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
But that happened. So the park run record got broken towards the end of last year in Edinburgh.
Okay.
Okay, and basically an Olympian rocked up.
Right.
Between like training, got a bunch of his training partners so that they could actually create like a sort of wind tunnel for him.
Yeah.
And smashed the park run record and took it down to like 12 minutes something. It previously stood from a GB runner, Andy Badley, I think he was called. He had it for years. He was like the park run record holder,
God,
like 13 minutes or something like that. It might have even been less. And he did that in London somewhere. And he just rocked up one day and did it.
Yeah.
Whereas this was like a whole like pre-planned thing.
Yeah.
And this guy just went out there and smacked. And the one in Edinburgh is just a straight out and back type thing.
That's good.
So it's a nice easy one. And and it was ridiculous. And it's like that I see why you did it. I'm the world.
I'd
park
love to
run
be able
holder.
to just go to.
But
like,
then at the same
Sunday
time,
and
it's
just
like
do that.
it doesn't feel in the spirit of park run.
No, it's meant to be your everyday.
Yeah,
everyday.
like park run so much for my mum to rock up and feel inclusive doing a 5K.
I used to, because I used to volunteer at our local one for a bit, and it's just, every day. People of all ages. You get everything from really young kids to really old people.
Yeah.
Some people walk it.
Yeah.
They don't even run it.
And that's it. And I think that's because park run now, just this week, they've announced that they're no longer on their site going to have fastest times. They're not going to post like the times of the top finishers on, because what they normally do is like top women, top.
Right.
And they're removing all of that because they're trying to put like the inclusivity back into it.
Yeah, right.
So the idea basically being that like you rock up, you do it, you're around a bunch of like-minded people. Because I think what's starting to happen is people are rocking up on a Saturday morning and they're taking it too serious. They're suddenly, it's a couple of minutes, I'll get my super shoes on.
There's always a few people, to be fair.
You're always going to have that.
They're going to go. Yeah. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to come along and just
No, because it's always going to be easier for somebody to go out there and run a PR with other people around them than it is to just go out and do it in the street on your own on a random Thursday afternoon or whatever it might be. So I think it's good for that kind of thing. I just wonder if, I don't know, let's say you've got my mum, she doesn't run, but she might be an example of somebody. Say my mum starts running and she wants to find an event where she can go along and not feel intimidated. Parkrun's perfect for that. Until she gets there and then suddenly sees that there's a bunch of guys rocking up in their club vests and their super shoes, and then suddenly you
and their Asics
don't feel so you don't feel so inclusive, and you do suddenly feel intimidated. So I do get why parkrun's done it. I know a lot of people aren't happy about it, but parkrun has always sold itself on not being a race. So I think that's what they're going back to. People will still brag.
You can't take that out of people's heads though, can you? Like when you're running next to someone and they're going faster than you, you're going to want to go faster than them, aren't you?
100%.
Yeah.
Any time that
especially if it's men.
It instantly kicks in.
Testosterone.
Any time that I've either won a race or I've come in a top position, it's because somebody's coming up close behind me and I need to drop the hammer. Or it's because I've got into a proper dogfight at the end. And we've got a race for that finish. I've even done that like in ultras and stuff. It's just ridiculous. I remember like coming over the hill on an ultra with somebody, and we had almost been running like side by side the whole time, just either just passing each other naturally or running side by side. And it was like a dogfight for third and fourth place.
Right.
And literally as soon as we went over the hill, like we both saw the finish line, we both just dropped the hammer. Now a lot of people are going to argue on a sport like ultra running, it's like that's just like such bad sportsmanship, it's not in the spirit of the sport and things like that. And it's like, no, I want that third place.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to place.
It's like if I've got that extra little bit in the tank for the last 200 metres, that's on me.
Right. So that's the thing though, when you finish a race like that and you go home and like people always like, where did you finish? People always ask you that. Like people always like, where did you finish? Like if you say like, if you say you finished third, you're like, oh shit, fair enough. Like that's cool. Like
the other thing for me is I need to come first, second, or third, and there's a really, really good reason for this, that you don't have this problem yet, and that is that I have 2 children,
Right.
And usually, if you come first, second, or third, you get a second prize.
Right.
And it's a lot easier to go home with 2 medals and give one to each of them than it is to go home with one and watch them fight over it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It's like the amount of times I've been like, I didn't win anything.
Yeah, okay. Damn. That's added pressure for you.
Yeah, so you have to come home with 2 prizes.
Lovely. Right, I think we'll call episode 1 there. I guess on to the next. We're going to try and keep this as frequent as we can. Obviously, we'll put all the socials and stuff in the description of this video. Instagram, shorts, obviously on the YouTube, everything like that. I've got personal Instagram as well, callum.climbs, Callum with 1 L. I'm not a 2L Callum. I will make that fucking... I'm going to put that out there. But yeah, cool. Right, I'll see you in the next one.